It is now the age of heavy guns. In this video, I review the Canik Rival S. There's been a big interest not only in heavier guns, but guns that are ready to compete out of the box, larger for either IDPA or USPSA, among many others. And for this video, I'm going to focus on its out-of-the-box performance. And so with that said, I actually just went right to work shooting the gun in a drill rather than just sitting there trying to warm up with it. I figure if you are going to get this gun and expect to go and compete with it, regardless if you've even touched it, you should feel confident that this thing is ready to go. So that way it's one less item for you to check off of and worry about. And the thing I noticed immediately was how soft shooting the gun was. And I actually started out with some Blazer 115 because I figure if you're going to be on a budget or you want to do a lot of plinking, let's do it with ammo you're most likely to use. And so that's what I started using. It's actually really easy to feel that if my wrists are locked and I have ideal grip. And it really translated a lot in my shooting, as literally my first round was literally just, hey, I don't know what this gun's gonna do, but let's see what it does. And as I ran the stage, I noticed quickly how well balanced the gun felt in transitions, and the follow-up shots were immediate. You know, with a lot of other guns, especially a lot of heavy competition guns like the Shadow 2 is one that really sticks out to mind. They start to be a little bit muzzle heavy. And you notice that when you're swinging the gun around in transitions, especially wide ones. And in this particular drill, it was effortless for me to acquire targets and continually shoot alphas throughout this whole drill. Now, a competition gun would not be one if you didn't shoot in a competition. So I actually signed up for a local IDPA match.
Are you not cold? Huh? Are you not chilly? I love chilies, especially when you go there and you get the Tarlinga chill.
I mean, I would say that the size of this magwell too that comes with it, I had no issues doing reloads throughout the whole entire thing. Mind you, I didn't even really dry fire this gun or even practice reloads. As I kept shooting throughout the day, I became appreciative of how the gun worked from the factory. I will be honest with you and say I don't think I would do anything to this gun besides maybe consider different grips, because I'm not the biggest fan of the grips. I tend to like a more palm swell where this is actually fairly flat. I would even argue that the optic that comes with it is excellent as well. I found it to be crisp, clear, and there was no dip in it. I think between my grip and how well this gun operates, I never watched the dot actually leave the window. If anything, the dot rose minimally too.
Ah, you stupid barrel! Ah!
The one thing I've noticed is actually this tends to sit a little bit lower to the bore axis. And what that actually translates to is if your optic's sitting fairly high, where you're gonna get more of an exaggerated feel on the dot.
Ah!
I think it is worth mentioning that I wanted to use a gamer load for this IDPA match, and so I ended up using Supervel 147 ammo for specifically shooting competition, both IDPA and USPSA. It was helpful because it just felt so soft and it gave me so much confidence to run a stage that I managed to squeak out .11 splits at some points in my run on closer targets. The interesting thing is that these are very aggressive in terms of what you meant to grip, but I actually find them kind of slippery. If you want to rely on the grip texture, if you're ever just doing a press check or anything like that, no, it's fairly slippery. It also doesn't help that most striker fired guns do come with a heavier recoil spring from the factory. So while I like the actual look and feel of everything, its usability is something to kind of pay attention to. But other than that, the gun is actually strikingly beautiful. You know, when you actually pull the trigger, Oh, that's such a nice crisp break. It literally is like the dynamic trigger from Walther, but this is right out of the box. So literally this is here, the reset is minimal. And that's nice because when you're doing follow-up shots and once you get used to it, you actually can throw down some fairly quick splits. The cool thing is, as I build my grip on this gun, I find it fairly easy to index and actually get an optimal grip. This gun and the ergos are pretty decent. I'd have to probably argue that the Q5 steel frame is a little bit nicer, but you'll grip this gun and you won't be disappointed.
Wait a second, what just happened?
When we actually go and look through the specs of this, I'm actually going to focus on how it relates to either IDPA or USPSA. Now, the cool thing is you have plenty of options for this, and I actually went with the strictest rule set first just to see where it stands. And as it sits in this, it's actually in the IDPA format for carry optics specifically. And what puts it in that division is the fact that now I have put a magwell on it and as well as an optic. So with this set, this whole entire package weight-wise weighs only 43 ounces, with 45 ounces being the limit for IDPA. Not only can you run this gun out of the box as it sits in IDPA, but you can also run this in ESP by simply pulling off the optic. If you wanted to run SSP, you just simply remove the magwells and that's it. Now, when we look at USPSA, what you would have to do here, literally you just pull off this magwell and it definitely doesn't touch the weight limit, which is 59 ounces. I would say right where it's at, this is ideal. Now, the other divisions it's applicable for too is you can also run production if you want to run it with iron sights, and if you really wanted to, you could run limited minor. And you know, there's actually a case out there whether that's competitive or not, because major scoring is a little more favorable, especially the way we can tune guns now. In this past nationals, Nils Johannesson, which is Canik's factory shooter, won the limited division shooting a polymer rival with 9 minor. And that's quite the achievement, and that just goes to show that it's really about the shooter and not necessarily about the gun. So one big criticism I have with this out-of-the-box factor, you get all these tools in this nice box. However, it does come with a holster. One thing I noticed right away when I grabbed it was the screw was loose, and I was just like, oh, okay, I'll just put that back in the threads and just tighten it right back up. And when I put my whole rig together and went to go shoot it, I quickly understood why that screw was backed out to where it was. Out of the box, it needs a lot of improvement. Every single stage I shot, I had an issue with binding, and it was even to the point where I backed out the screw completely. I actually picked a couple of friends' brains that actually shoot the Caniks and said, hey, is this kind of a normal thing with the holsters? And they said, yes, you do not want to use the holster out of the box with the Canik. What you'll actually need, in my humble opinion, is that you'll need an optic, and I would recommend for less than $200 their mechanic optic that's on here right now, and buy about 2 extra magazines as well as some extended base pads if you want to do USPSA, and a holster along with some mag pouches. Now, when you look at that in the big picture, you can probably get those things for anywhere, including the cost of the gun, the optic, and all the mags, for probably less than $1,300. I can tell you without a doubt, one gun and one setup cost me about $3 grand, whether it's the Shadow 2 or the Q5 steel frame. And so the value for this thing and the out-of-box shootability is not only going to get you in the door, but it's going to make you feel confident about going out there and just running stages and improving your craft. Because let's face it, for the extra, let's call it $1,500, $1,700 you got to spend on the other guns, you could just go grab some additional ammo and get yourself better. With that said, I think Canik is now setting the tone, especially in the competition arena, that you don't have to spend big bucks to go shoot and win a match. If you like this video, please hit that like button. That really helps me out a lot. And you'll also want to subscribe, because if you had noticed throughout this video, I had touched on the rival polymer and the Q5 steel frame, and I'll be doing a comparison. So you'll want to get that as soon as it comes out. And with that said, I highly recommend the Canik Rival S. Now, if you have any additional questions or comments, just shoot them down below. I'm happy to answer them. So until next time, stay safe and we'll see you at the range.